You wake up to the feeling of cold air on your face. No alarm, no phone, no roof. Your eyes open to a sky still heavy with stars, but the eastern horizon is just beginning to pale. You're lying on a bed of dried moss and grass, wrapped in an animal hide that still holds the warmth of your body. Next to you, the embers of last night's fire glow faintly orange. This is 40,000 years ago. You are a modern human, Homo sapiens, living in what will one day be called Europe at the height of the last ice age. The glaciers are a few hundred kilometers north, but even here, winter temperatures can drop to -20 Celsius. You have no metal, no pottery, no written language. You have no house, no job, no bank account, no keys, no wallet. Everything you own fits in a leather satchel that weighs less than 5 kilograms. And yet, by some measures, you may have more free time than any CEO in the 21st century. Let's start from the beginning. Your day begins when your body is ready. You don't check a clock because there is no clock. You don't rush because there is nowhere to be except right here. You stretch, push the hide aside, and sit up. The ground is hard and cold beneath your feet. Around you, a dozen other figures are stirring. Your band, your extended family. There are children, elders, aunts, cousins, a few unrelated adults who joined your group years ago. In total, about 25 people. That's the typical size of a hunter-gatherer camp, according to anthropological studies of modern foragers and the archaeological record of sites like Dolní Věstonice in what is now the Czech Republic. You look around. Your shelter is not a cave. Caves are rare and often already claimed by bears or other groups. Instead, you've built a low, oval hut from mammoth bones and reindeer antlers, covered with hides and turf. It's sturdy, insulated, and surprisingly warm when the fire is lit. But the fire burned low overnight, so the first task of the day is to get it roaring again. You crawl to the central hearth and gently blow on the embers. A few dry twigs, some dried moss, and a puff of air. The flames catch. Within minutes, the fire is crackling, casting dancing shadows on the hide walls. Someone hands you a piece of dried meat from last week's kill. It's tough and salty, but it fills your stomach. There is no breakfast cereal, no coffee. Your morning drink is warm water from the nearby stream, boiled to kill parasites. Because even 40,000 years ago, humans understood that clean water kept you alive. Now the group splits. Some stay behind to mend tools, tan hides, and watch the children. Others, you included, head out to gather food. Today is a gathering day, not a hunting day. Hunting is unpredictable. Gathering is reliable. In fact, anthropologist Richard Lee's 1969 study of the Kung San in southern Africa found that gathering provided about 60 to 80% of the group's daily calories. For your ancestors, the same was true. You know exactly which plants are edible, which roots are sweet, which berries are safe, and which mushrooms will kill you in a slow, painful way. This knowledge is passed down orally from elder to child, generation after generation. You walk for about 2 hours scanning the ground, the bushes, the trees. You carry a digging stick, a sharpened branch hardened by fire, to pry out tubers. You also carry a woven basket made from plant fibers. You fill it with wild onions, hazelnuts, and a few handfuls of blackberries. It's not glamorous, but it's food. And in this world, food is survival. But survival is not a constant battle. That's the counterintuitive truth. For most of human existence, the average work week was about 15 to 20 hours. That's what James Suzman argues in his book work, A Deep History, and he draws on decades of ethnographic evidence. Your ancestors were not slaves to the clock. They worked hard when they needed to, during a hunt, during a long winter, during a migration. But most days were slow, social, and surprisingly relaxed. Around midday, you return to camp. The meat eaters, the hunters, have returned too, but empty-handed. No luck today. That's fine. You share the nuts and berries. Everyone eats together, sitting around the fire. There is no hierarchy, no boss, no owner. Food is distributed according to need, not status. Archaeological evidence from campsites like those in the Périgord region of France shows that early humans shared meat equally, with no central storage or accumulation of wealth. This wasn't communism, it was pragmatism. If you don't share, the group starves, and so do you. After the meal, the afternoon stretches out. Some people nap. Others repair a cracked spear point. A few older women are braiding fiber cords. You pick up a piece of red ochre and a flat stone, and you start to grind it into a fine powder. Why? Because you want to paint. Not on a wall, on your own skin. You mix the ochre with animal fat and smear it across your forearm. It's a pattern, a symbol, perhaps a mark of belonging to your group. Red ochre is found at nearly every early human site, from Blombo's cave in South Africa, 100,000 years old, to the Neanderthal burials at Shanidar Cave in Iraq. It was used for body decoration, for rituals, for storytelling. You're not just surviving, you are expressing. That evening, a hunting party returns with a young reindeer. The men and women, everyone hunted, though pregnant or nursing women often stayed closer to camp. Had tracked it for hours, surrounded it, and killed it with a volley of spears tipped with sharpened flint. Now, the whole camp gathers around the carcass. Someone slices open the belly, another collects the blood in a hide bag. The liver is offered to the eldest, a sign of respect. The meat is cut into strips and roasted on sticks over the fire. The marrow is cracked open with a stone hammer, a delicacy rich in fat. Nothing is wasted. Not the bones, they become tools. Not the sinew, they become thread. Not the hide, it becomes clothing. In your world, every part of an animal has a purpose. As darkness falls, the fire glows bright against the indigo sky. The stars appear, crisp and brilliant. There is no light pollution, no city glow. You can see the Milky Way as a river of light, and you know its patterns by heart because they guide your migrations and mark the seasons. Someone starts a story, a tale of a giant bear that lives in the mountain, or of a spirit that steals children who wander too far. You listen, half believing, half entertained. These stories are not just entertainment. They are education. They teach you which animals are dangerous, which plants are poisonous, and how to behave in a group. They bind your community together. And then you sleep. Not in a bed, not in a room, but among your people with the fire's warmth and the sounds of the night. Owls, wolves, the crackle of embers. You sleep deeply because your body is tired from real physical exertion, not from mental stress. You have no emails, no deadlines, no news, no social media. Your dreams are vivid, about the hunt, about the ochre painting, about the face of someone you love. Now let's zoom out. This day is not unusual. It is a typical day for 99% of your species' existence. For roughly 300,000 years, Homo sapiens lived like this, in small egalitarian bands as hunter-gatherers. The agricultural revolution didn't happen until about 12,000 years ago. That means for more than 95% of our history, we were not farmers, not city dwellers, not employees. We were nomads, foragers, artists, storytellers, and grandparents. And we were healthy, not in the sense of modern medicine, but in the sense of varied diet, physical activity, and strong social bonds. Skeletal remains from that era show few signs of the malnutrition, dental decay, and infectious diseases that would later ravage farming communities. But here's the twist. That life is gone forever. And the life you live now, the life of the 21st century, is radically different in ways that your ancestors could never have imagined. You sit in a climate-controlled room. You stare at a glowing rectangle. You communicate with people you've never met through symbols that are typed, not spoken. You work for a wage, exchange your time for money, and spend that money on food that comes from thousands of miles away. Your stress is chronic. Your sleep is fragmented, and your social circle is small and often digital. Modern hunter-gatherers studied by anthropologists like Polly Wiessner have shown that they sleep an average of 6 to 7 hours a night, uninterrupted, and wake without an alarm. They don't have anxiety about the future because they live in the present. They don't hoard wealth because it's useless to them. They don't compete for status because they are fiercely egalitarian. When the ethnographer Napoleon Chagnon studied the Yanomami in the Amazon, he found that their social conflicts were often resolved through ritual, not violence, and that they spent far more time laughing and talking than fighting. So what does that mean for you? It means your body and brain are still wired for that ancient world. Your desire for sugar, fat, and salt comes from a time when those were rare and precious. Your ability to recognize faces, to empathize, to tell stories, all of that is your ancestral legacy. Your modern anxiety about productivity, about being busy, about filling every minute, that is a recent invention. Your ancestors didn't have a word for boredom because they rarely felt it. They had leisure, but it was filled with conversation, craft, and play. You might think you wouldn't last a day in that world. You'd be cold, hungry, and terrified of the predators, wolves, cave lions, and even bears. And you're right, you would likely die quickly because you lack the skills, the knowledge, and the physical conditioning that your ancestors built from childhood. But that's not because they were superhuman. It's because they were deeply connected to their environment, to each other, and to a rhythm of life that your modern schedule has shattered. You wake up when your body is ready. No alarm, no schedule, no place you need to be. That was the first line of this story. And now, you understand that it wasn't a fantasy. It was reality for almost all of human history. It was your reality once. And though you cannot go back, though the glaciers are gone, the reindeer herds have thinned, and the forests have been cleared, you can still honor that inheritance. You can still walk outside, feel the sun on your skin, eat a meal with people you love, tell a story, and sleep without a screen glowing beside you. Because that is what it means to be human. And that is what your ancestors would recognize.